Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. Please join. Let's wait for the rest. So, hi guys, welcome. Today we are going to talk about immune system. So this is our lecture that will be devoted on how our immune system works. And I think that especially this year, it has been really principal to understand the role of our immune system against different pathogens, different viral particles, and just to help ourselves in order to stimulate your immune system and even to understand what kind of drugs to take, so that you are on the right track of healing yourself. So all these will be covered today, and we are going also to talk about some autoimmune diseases. And by this time you already have heard about different blood cell types, and today we're going to look more on different immune cells, and also we will talk about different types of immune system, that is innate immune system and active or adaptive immune system, how they are regulated, how they function. And we will wrap up our lecture slides by talking about some autoimmune diseases and maybe some allergy if we are left with some time. Okay, so actually this immune system is a very broad topic. It's actually a cellular biology field, and this field is really developing very intense, and we try to put the information in a compact way so that you are not overwhelmed with different terminology, and hopefully the content of the slides will give you a general idea of how our immune system works. So once we were talking about the microbiology part during our course, we talked about different pathogens that cause diseases. So, and we talked that we're always on a constantly basis exposed to pathogens. So we're not living in a sterile world. The food that we consume, the air that we breathe, the surfaces on which we walk, people whom we meet. So all those objects that carry some pathogens that we inhale and that we can eat, that can cross through our skin barrier, and our immune system is always controlling types of pathogens that it needs to overcome. But despite that, our immune system is not always causing us to have fever, temperature rise. So we're living normal life, and it's all due to the different barriers for the pathogens to cross in order to trigger the immune systems. So the first is your skin, and we learned that our skin acts as a first defense barrier, and we have their Langerhans cells. Those are immune cells which are always alarm us in case there are some pathogens. It makes its all best to not allow the pathogen to go through the skin and into the underlying tissue. So the first barrier is always our nose, that we have there. Also the mucus lining in your throat. We also learned that mucus always tries to rinse away all the particulates and pathogens and dusts by the coughing or sneezing, so that it does not go into the deeper side of the lungs. And we have our nose, which also acts as the first gateway, not to allow the pathogens to enter skin. And the food that you consume, and it goes to the stomach, and in the stomach we have very acid environment. The gastric acid gives the pH 4, which is really harmful for bacteria, and they just die at that acidic environment. So we also have their dendritic cells that you'll be covering soon, and all these work as a first defense gates, not to allow to save the energy of our immune cells, okay? To save the energy of the whole entire immune system, and they act as the first helpers. So that's why it's really important that you don't have any injuries on your skin, because when your skin is irritated and you have some punctures or injuries, that's why it's really important that you sanitize it very quickly, not to allow any pathogens to enter it. Yeah, so that is the principal thing to remember. So immune system is entirely a defense system of an organism. And as you can see in the picture, yeah, we have our skin as the first barrier to enter all these viral particles, microorganisms in the form of protists, fungi, viruses, microorganisms, and there are billions and billions of them that surround us on a daily basis. And especially now, yeah, we are very prone to the type of SARS-CoV virus. And our system is divided into innate and adaptive. And these are two types of immune system which do their best in order to prepare us to be ready for the pathogens. So innate is given from the very first day of your birth. You have this innate immunity inherited from your mother and from your father. And this is the like the first defense in order to trigger the immune system to fight any pathogen that it encounters. It's called non-specific in a way that it does not differentiate, be it virus, be it bacteria. It just triggers the immune system to have a fever. Yeah, like a general symptoms will be there with the innate. So whereas adaptive, it comes after innate. So once your immune system encountered type of, let's say, type of bacteria, yeah, it has a memory. Once it encounters second time the same bacteria, it will be there already ready. And we call it adaptive. So it means that it's already adapted to that, to attack that specific microbe. Yeah, so therefore adaptive is a specific type of response, whereas innate is non-specific because it's encountering that pathogen for the first time and it's non-specific. Okay, so this way, once we have this first innate immunity, which is smoothly linked to the adaptive immunity, we develop our immune system. So vaccination, for instance, is a good example that first it triggers your innate immune system. Yeah. So once you get the vaccination from during your childhood, your parents were very vigilant so that you slowly develop your immune response toward that particular type of pathogen that entered your body. So that came with the vaccination. And in case when, let's say there is a, let's say, pneumococcal disease or meningococcal disease, when there is an outbreak of it, you are protected in a way that your body can quickly respond to that pathogen, because due to the vaccination, your body was ready to develop the immune response by antibodies, and it's ready to attack that, so that the process of, so that even if you're getting infected with that, it will be very, very mild without those harsh conditions. Okay, so that was just a general overview and how it evolves. Yeah, we have, so let's start from bacteria, prokaryotes. So they have their own system for defense, because they need also to defend themselves from the extracellular or external environment. So in case there is some nucleic acid in the form of DNA that is non-self, yeah, that is not the bacterial own nucleic acid, they can just cleave it like scissors. They will just cleave it by applying some enzymes. They will just cleave it and make it inefficient. So this was kind of the defense to protect itself. And as we evolutionary system went on, the eukaryotes, they were able to detect specific sequences on the pathogens called pattern recognition receptors. So these pattern recognition receptors actually are present on the eukaryote cells, and if these are receptors, they should be something, right? Should be bound to these receptors, and those are called PAMPs, which is pathogen associated molecular patterns. And those are specific sequences which are recognized by these pattern recognition receptors on eukaryote cells, and that triggered the immune system in the form of by collecting and bringing the immune cells. So for you to remember is that the innate immune system, it gives us, it's not about the developing of long-lasting immune memory. It's all about adaptive immune system that we will call. Yeah, so innate immune system is non-specific. It's present since birth, and it responds very fast because evolutionarily it was nurtured to quickly attack the pathogen in order to defend the organism. And it involves very different types of cells that we will be also covering. Okay. So what is also important is that in plants, for instance, because they are not in a dynamic, yeah, they're always standing in one place, and we call them static. And what they have evolved to protect themselves, especially for the pathogens that is always coming with the wind and from the soil, their response is to limited to apoptosis. So apoptosis, it's a killing of the cell. Yeah. So once the cell of the plant is infected with the bacteria or with the virus, there is a programmed cell death that will drive the cell to go through apoptosis, and we just call it like killing of the cells. So the signal comes from the intrinsically from the cell itself. So. And also we don't have the PRR system, which is pattern recognition receptors. We don't have them in vertebrates, but we have them in vertebrates, okay? So there are different organs which are responsible for the normal circulation and function of the immune system. And I think so far you know some of them, and we already covered the skin. Yes, the largest organ of our body that acts as the immune. It has many functions, but among them, first, one of them was the immune protection. And second, you also learned bone marrow. Once we talked about the blood cells, and we know that in bone marrow we have development of red blood cells, white blood cells, yeah, and specifically these white blood cells, their primary function is to attack the pathogens. So we have different white blood cells in the form of neutrophils, and they eat the pathogen. And in the bowel, we also have different, because we have the food that comes from the mouth to the stomach, and in the bowel, we also have to be alert about if there is some particles which can trigger our system. We also have them ready. So we have immune cells in the bowel, in the stomach as well. Regarding the thymus, from the last lecture, you learned that thymus, we have them during our childhood, yeah, and in the adolescent, this thymus will be covered with adipose tissue and then it just kind of disappears. So what is the role of this thymus is to develop the T cells. So all the T cells that are the key players in immune cells are matured in thymus. Whereas the B cells, they mature in the bone marrow. Okay, B and T cells are the cells of the adaptive immune system. What about the tonsils? You have it in your, so if you open your mouth, you can actually see them, these tonsils. There are two of them sitting in your soft palate. And some people remove these tonsils, and it's called through the process of tonsillectomy. And why this happens is that because there's always like recurrent inflammation, some doctors might suggest to remove these tonsils. And what is the role of it? It also has the role of once you breathe, once you eat, it acts as a barrier not to allow the pathogens to go through your trachea into the lungs, because it contains some white blood cells, which are also immune cells. Okay. And we also mentioned in nose and throat, you have them. The immunity, we call it like oral immunity, nasal immunity. So those are local immunity, like limited to that specific area, not to allow the pathogens to enter. So also on the skin, we have different, our skin shelters thousands of types of bacteria, which are good bacteria that helps us to fight with bad bacteria that starts to sit on the surface of our skin. Okay. And the rest is the thymus. I have already explained. Lymph nodes, they actually are, most lymph nodes are found in your armpits. And actually those act as a filter to, once the blood starts to circulate, it's, we can see different germs and particulates. And once it's recognized there, the lymph nodes will trigger the production of antibodies, and antibodies are proteins, immunoglobulins that are specifically secreted by the B cells to attack antigens that is presented by the pathogens. Okay. So in case, for instance, you have some swollen lymph nodes and you can feel that it has been a bit enlarged, then there is something going on. Yeah. So your lymph nodes are collecting the so the more blood going through it, and the cells are coming to that site. So it means that the active immune response are going on. So that's the indicator. Okay. So that's why when you go to the doctor's office, physically, once they start to examine you, they touch those specific parts of your body where you have these lymph nodes, just to make sure that you are not going through the process of acute immune response. So regarding the spleen, last time I had a question where we have the spleen. It's closely sitting to the digestive tract, and it's here. And its main function is to filter the microbes within the bloodstream, and also to remove all the old red blood cells and thrombocytes. Okay. So again, if you remove tonsils or spleens for some reason, there is no, again, any problem, because you can see you have many other organs of the immune system that can compensate the work of them. Okay, so let's talk about the innate immune system. So first, when you think about the innate immune system, it's all about the cells. So there are many cells in the form of phagocytic cells. So phagocytos, from the Greek word phage, phagos, it means eating. And cyto, it's cell, yeah? So phagocytic cells are those which are engulfing the pathogens, which are eating them to destroy them, yeah? So we have them in the form of neutrophils that are circulating in your blood, and macrophages. So these are the two type of phagocytes which whose primary function is to eat the pathogens. So what they do is that they always have they're always circulating through the body, especially neutrophils. They're always circulating in the body just to like security, yeah, what's going on, just to monitor whether everything is fine. So in case if there is something is going on, it will start to attack them, and also call the macrophages to the side so that they also help them, because these two guys are destined for phagocytosis. Oops. So what they do is that when, let's say here when there is a site, specific site, be it your skin, yeah, and if there is a microbe, then this microbe will be ingested by the cell that has its own. So this is actually your cell, yeah, and the cell will engulf it in a way that it will turn it into the phagolysosome. So lysosome, it's all about removing the debris of the cell. Yeah, it's a specific physical part of the inside the cell, and phagolysosome, it's named a specific part of the cell that is inside this neutrophil or macrophages. They just ingest it and they will lyse it. So the microbe will be teared apart by specific enzymes that are sitting inside this phagolysosome. And they will also release free radicals that will be poisonous for this microbe. And the microbe doesn't have any choice just to be destroyed. Okay? So this is not just a single macrophage. They're like will be collecting many macrophages at that specific point for the infection to kill the organism, microorganisms. Okay, so 60% of all leukocytes, that is your white blood cells, are these neutrophils. So when you have these blood tests done in the clinic, you always can look at the range of the neutrophils just to be sure that you are not going through infection. Yeah, so if the indicators are more than the range, it means that your doctor will can prescribe you more of the anti-inflammatory or antibiotics. So these NPs are really important. Okay, so these macrophages, they actually they are sitting in our skin as well. Yeah, so they are locally sitting within the tissues, within the connective tissues, and they produce also the enzymes to kill the microorganisms and also some cytokines. So last time I talked about this cytokine storm, yeah? So these cytokines are specific mediators of inflammation. So these are the molecules that trigger the inflammation, okay? So for instance, with the COVID-19 disease, there was a cytokine storm. It means that all the body's, like most of the body organs, were going through the inflammation process as a result of the cytokine release into the bloodstream. Okay. So here are actually the cells. Apart from macrophages and neutrophils, we have dendritic cells, natural killer cells, and these dendritic cells are antigen-presenting cells, and they are also located in the skin and in the mucous membranes. And just remember that they are antigen-presenting cells. So what is antigen? Antigen is actually, if you look at this picture, it's a nice picture that shows you what is antigen. So this is your dendritic cells, and as you can see, they have these dendrites. Yeah, so they are not like as round as a cell, but they have these dendrites like protrusions, and these protrusions are specifically made evolutionarily to engulf the microbe. So let's say this is your invader, yeah, foreign particle that is attacking your body, and the dendritic cell will come to attack this specifically under the skin, for instance. And what is going on is that it will engulf it, and it will go to the phagosome, which will further be lysed with the lysosome that contains enzyme to kill the cells. So your microbe is not any longer, does not any longer have that is natural size, yeah. And here you see that it has been killed with enzymes to be particulated, yeah, into these parts. And this is specifically important in a way that this will be antigens, okay? So antigens is then presented onto the surface of the dendritic cells to trigger further immune response. I hope it's clear. So you start with the microbes, which are being digested, killed, and then our dendritic cells will start to display specific parts of the microbe to our immune systems to trigger further collection of other cells, antibodies. Yeah. So what happens is that we will have the trigger of the immune system in the form that will bring us the cells, and we will have like fever, muscle ache, lethargy, fatigue, and so on. Next is natural killer cells. So the killer is the name again, to destroy, to kill the cells. And these NK cells are not only specific to infected cells, but also they are very clever to kill the cancerous or abnormally dividing cells. So as you can see here, this is your natural killer cells. It has its it can recognize specific antibodies, and this is your cancer cells that displays specific molecules that we call antigens or MHC class 1, which is recognized by the NK cells, and it will trigger the death of these cancer cells. Okay, so very important part here is that these NK cells can actually see the cancer cells, because we have also healthy cells, yeah, and we also have non-healthy cells that can be either infected cells or cancer cells, and how these NK cells can differentiate between the good cell and bad cells, because it's very important in a way that these our healthy cells, they secrete on the surface of their cells, they secrete MHC class 1, and this MHC class complex 1, it's MHC1, yeah, it's a cell surface marker that is recognized by the natural killer cell as good. Like I won't touch that healthy cells because it can recognize this MHC1 as being a good cell surface marker, so it won't touch that. However, this MHC major histocompatibility complex, that is short for MHC, is a bit altered, modified in infected cells, that is infected with microorganisms or virus, or in abnormally dividing cells. So since it's a bit modified, something is wrong there, something goes awry on this MHC class 1, then these NK cells will target them and will destroy it. Okay, so you see how clever is this immune system. So the very first responses of the innate immune system is that person will have high temperature, fever. It will be like systematic immune response. Yeah, it can be either localized in the like redness, swelling, or it can be generalized like high temperature. So this inflammation is mediated by these cytokines that are released by the infected cells, like by macrophages, and these cytokines actually are the principal mediators for the high temperature, that is 30.55, and this occurs due to the bringing the cells into the inflammation site, be it your throat or your skin, under skin. Yes, so these phagocytes in the form of neutrophils and macrophages or dendritic cells, yes, they will be coming to the site of the infection, and they will do their best not to allow to attack that particular pathogen. So what happens is that if the immune system fails to limit the inflammation's area, then the person will start to have general feeling of pain, lethargy, and even sometimes high blood pressure, as you can see in this picture. And our nerve endings feel that pain, yeah, that is through the prostaglandins, and they will feel that pain, and maybe evolutionarily it was done in a way so that person stays home, stays in bed, doesn't go out in order not to spread the infection to other people and just stay isolated. Yeah. So another function of the innate immune system, apart from eating the cell, eating the pathogen, is another is the complement system. So complement is about different proteins that will bind to the antibodies that has recognized the pathogen. So here is your antibodies, and these are the microorganisms or that will the antigen. Yeah, so antibody recognizes the antigen which is presented on the cell that has digested the microorganisms or virus. And here are the complements, which is the different types of proteins that will bind to these specific antibodies, and they will trigger a cascade of sequential reactions to kill that specific cell which has been infected. Okay, so there is an amplification of the immune system, and they have like specific enzymes called proteases, and these proteases will just cleave the pathogens because they cleave the proteins, and if no proteins are left within these pathogens, they will just die. Okay, so we have here, as you learned from the last lecture regarding the feedback regulations, yeah, again, in a complement system, we have positive feedback regulation. So once we have more of these complement proteins are brought up to the site of infection, we stimulate more of the immune response to bring us more of the immune cells here in the form of macrophages, yeah, and neutrophils to kill, to lyse the cell. I think I have some questions. I'll just quickly go through it. Okay. Oh, sorry, guys. I'll go one by one. So yes, tonsils actually. You can actually see them. Either they can be red, so it's like initial inflammation, yeah, like very first symptoms, and sometimes like if you get this streptococcus bacteria, they will form white because there are pus, which is collection of white blood cells that are fighting with the pathogens, specifically with the streptococcus bacteria, and they will turn white, yeah. And the doctor, once he checks your mouth, the throat, he will actually look at your tonsils, because your tonsils is the first indicator, it's your immune indicator what's going on, because it's the first barrier that actually acts as a defense. My mom wants to explain. Yeah, that's true. Can't cut into tonsils help prevent us from getting ill less, or only less of the condition, because some people, from have them cut. It seems that infections just proceed further. Yeah. You're right, absolutely, Nikita, regarding that. So once the person goes through this tonsillectomy, and just imagine, yes, so there is no gate which previously acted to defend your body, so that that doesn't go further to your lungs. And in that case, people with that, if they have a good immune system, like have always leading a good lifestyle, diet, doing some sports, yeah, in that case there is no at all problem, because you kind of training your immune system. Whereas those who are always prone to diseases, the doctor will, I really doubt that the doctor would advise to cut the tonsils, because it just deteriorates the patient's lifestyle by getting more and more of the disease. And when there is organ transplantation, for instance, because it's those people who get the organ from another donor, like kidney replacement, yeah, or like some cells replacement in diabetic people, for instance, they are kept in a very, very sterile room, because they are given many immunosuppressants not to trigger the immune system to reject the organ, because the organ has also, because it's from the other person, even if they are compatible, our body system, due to the immune system, will try to attack it and cause the damage. But because it was a very expensive treatment, yeah, for the patient. The doctors will do their best to put the person into the sterile room by giving the immunosuppressant, because they don't want the rejection of the organ by the host immune system. And why? Because they know that once the person is whose immune system is compromised, it's like low, yeah, suppressed, then they are very prone to catch the easy microorganisms that healthy person that can withstand. Okay. Regarding the antibodies and antigens, we will cover it by how MHC1 works in the cell. Okay. Regarding this MHC1, okay, this is major histocompatibility complex 1. We also have major histocompatibility complex 2. How it works? So let's say your dendritic cell has just engulfed, maybe in that case it will not be, so any antigen presenting cell, yeah, that can be either dendritic cell or macrophages, they engulfed this bacteria, right? And they dropped it, chopped them into different parts, and then now they are presenting it to the on the surface of their cells to trigger the further immune response. So yes, here MHC class 1 is actually specific molecule that is displayed on the surface of the antigen representing cell. In your dendritic cell that has just engulfed the bacteria, it will present the antigen, yeah, not directly on its surface, but on the surface of the major histocompatibility complex 1. So once there is MHC1 with antigen is presented on the antigen presenting cells, that will be recognized by the T cells that is produced in your thymus, and the T cells have T cell receptor, and that will recognize this MHC1 with antigen to trigger immune response by telling the immune system to develop antibodies or to develop more of the T cells, yeah, in order to kill the infected cell. Is it clear? Hope it's clear. If not, just let me know so that I can show it specifically in the picture. So what if you're infected, then recovered, but get sick again after a while with a new season? How can that be explained? I mean, does it mean that T cells did not remember the pathogen? Okay, so for instance, with this COVID disease, have you noticed that many people, once they have recovered from the hospital and they are staying home, they still have these peaks for the disease? Yeah, they still have these degrees, high temperature degrees for 40 degrees and so on. This is the disease specific. Okay, so the COVID-19 is really specific in a way that the person should be ill with that disease for almost 40 days. Can you imagine? That's why the body system will be really exhausted, and it's like a really bad stress to the entire human system. So it affects, depends on what type of infectious disease that person has. So with this COVID-19 is the same. However, like chickenpox, yeah, in childhood, we have this chickenpox, measles, mumps, rabies, and so on. We got vaccinated with them, and our immune system has a memory of these pathogens, and it has trained itself. Yeah, our innate system has trained itself for many, many years. And even when you go to the kindergarten and the person, like say your classmate has that disease, but if you are vaccinated, you won't get that because your body is able to cope with that. But your question says, if you get sick again, you might get sick again, but it means that you will not get that harsh health conditions that you had before. right? Have you observed that during the first time it was completely disaster, but when you encountered the same pathogenic organisms, your body is more or less prepared and you are not suffering at the same level as it was before. And another reason is that maybe that specific, like influenza, yeah, you got the vaccination against influenza, but next year that influenza is caused by a different strain. And in that case, you might get infected and your body system will be suffering again, like from the very first beginning, as if it was never vaccinated. Yes, because now the same disease is caused by a different type of trigger, by a different type of pathogen, because if the strain is different, it will act differently, right? And your organism is a bit lost and it starts to react to it like it's encountering it for the first time. Okay, some people around who treated their bone cells and hands with alcohol. Interesting question. Enhance sore throat with alcohol or vodka by simply moisturizing this substance by burning altogether. Oh, interesting. I have no idea, to be honest. Regarding with alcohol or vodka treating sore throat, just to kill the bacteria, because alcohol acts as a sanitizer and how to say disinfectant. Maybe this is because it cannot act as moisturizing because alcohol contains high portion of ethanol and it acts as a desiccation rather than moisturizing. Yes, Shinar already answered. Thank you. But yes, Bayan, you're right. So natural killer cells can really sense if it's good cells because natural killer cells has the memory of all composition of major histocompatibility complex 1, let's say, yeah. It knows the sequence like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, yeah. It knows this sequence is present in all MHC1. However, if this sequence is altered, is modified like B, C, F, G, L, for instance, yeah, then this NK cell will know, oh, there is something wrong. It's not the way it should be. Then I need to attack it. Okay, this is how it works. Okay, good. Let's move on. So now we have finished with innate immunity. So innate immunity is the first line defense. It consists of phagocytic cells like basophils, eosinophils, neutrophils, mast cells, natural killer cells. Mast cells actually are responsible for allergic rhinitis. It contains, as you can see, this it has this histamine release upon once some people are sensitized by pollen, by some dander of the of the cat, for instance. Yeah. So in that case, the muscle will start to release the histamine, and the people will have the running nose, itching, and swelling, and sometimes it's really bad that people can have anaphylaxis shock that is really they can be fatal. Okay, so these are all about the innate immunity, and as you see, it's hours. Within hours, we can attack the cells by having these phagocytic good friends of our immune system. And after that, our immune system has a memory, right? Once it saw these microorganisms or viral particle, it will, don't forget about that. It will have a memory. And this memory is represented by adaptive immunity. So it, following immune immunity, it starts to be active and start to prepare our body to be ready. If the same microorganism will attack us, it will quickly responds by secreting antibodies with the B cells, or by cytokines or cytotoxic molecules by the T cells, so that our body system will not suffer that much from the same microorganism that it encountered during the first during the innate immunity. So the transition is facilitated by two guys, which are macrophages and dendritic cells. Why? Because those are antigen-presenting cells. They have MHC class 1 on their surface, and they present the antigens on top of these MHC class 1 to these guys. An antibody which are secreted by the B cells will recognize the antigen that is sitting on the surface of the MHC class, and to trigger the opsonization, complement system, and engulfing of the cells by other immune cells. And regarding the T cells, we have CD8 T cells, CD4 T cells, which are killer cells or helper T cells. Those are very important, again, that they have receptors, T cell receptor, and the receptors to recognize the antigen here, to trigger the cytokine release. So once you have the cytokine, there is inflammation going on, cytotoxic molecules, those specific substances which will kill the infected cells, so that in order to remove any pathogens and infected cells. So
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Can you explain like the main difference between T cells and B cells? Like,
okay,
is it in their function, or which of them remembers the pathogen?
You can just imagine like B cells like military captain, okay? Like when there is a infection going on, B cells will kind of tell the T cells to go there, and T cells like soldiers, okay? So this adaptive immunity is represented by two lymphocytes, which are B cells and T cells, and they are not leukocytes, they are lymphocytes, okay? These guys were leukocytes. And these lymphocytes, their main function is to B cells, it's a humoral immunity, and it will secrete antibodies each antibody will be specific for its antigen. So it's again like a key and a lock model. Whereas T cells, so let me quickly show you one picture that will answer your question, because so that's just stay with me here. Oops. Was it here? I had a nice picture of how, this one, okay? So this is your antigen presenting cell, This is your dendritic cell or macrophages that has its, do you see that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. So this is your T cell, okay? So this T cell, it has its receptor to recognize the antigen. Epitope is actually a specific part of the antigen that is being recognized by the T cell receptor. So each T cell, they have their T cell receptor, and this is the co-receptor that gives its name CD4. So once you have this complex formed, what is happening is that both the antigen presenting cell and the T cell will release the cytokines, okay? And these cytokines, they cause the inflammation in that specific organ or specific tissue where the infection occurred. And once it's happening, the T cell will tell to have more of the T cells to be produced, like clones of the T cells produced. We need to be sure that it's completely destroyed, this antigen presenting cell. And at the same time, simultaneously, it will ask for the B cell clones. So the B cell will be cloned as well to produce the antibodies. Okay? And we'll also have these cytotoxic cells, that is the CD8 cells, that will, in their turn, once it's also recognized the antigen on the infected cells, it will have these granzymes, so a specific cytotoxic enzymes which will kill the cells, okay? So this is how it works.
So that is why it is a positive feedback, right? Or
For the
the production of more T cells.
Yeah, this is how it works. So once the infection occurred, it will start to send the signals for the more T cells to come to the area, for the more B cells to come to here, okay? And the B cells in their turn will have different opsonization or complement system going on to kill the cell, okay? To kill the infected cells. So I just like this picture, and I didn't put it into the slide. I thought maybe it will be too confusing for you. And thank you for your interest. Hopefully it was helpful. Okay. Now I go to my slide here. So let's go on with the adaptive immune system. So it's all about remembering the pathogen that was encountered in the innate immune system. And it's all about the antigen, yeah? So signature antigen. So once it knows what kind of antigen it had previously encountered, it's already preparing specific antibodies that is specific to this antigen, okay? So once you get this vaccination, what happens is that your body starts to produce antibodies. These plasma cells are producing these antibodies. It's Y-shaped immunoglobulins, and in this part, yeah, in the upper part, they have the place to recognize the antigen. And once you are encountered to the same infectious diseases, your antibodies can quickly silence them off. Okay, and again, we just tell that this antigen recognition is either self or non-self. So our body does not touch, our antibodies does not touch any substances which are self, which are our intrinsic. However, once it senses that it's not self, this is some invader, non-self, then it starts to trigger the immune system. However, sometimes it goes something awry and people develop autoimmune diseases, yeah? Once they, like in type 1 diabetes, they start, immune system start to attack the beta cells in the Langerhans cells in the pancreas, and that's why no insulin is produced, yeah? So that is called also autoimmune disease. So here are these guys, T cells and B cells. So T cells, they reside in the thymus, and we have two types of it. That is cytotoxic T cell or helper T cell that you just saw on the picture. So whereas B cells, we have different form, like plasmablasts, they produce a low affinity antibody. So these are the antibodies which are circulating, and they have a lower affinity for the antigen. And what is good about them is that they can quickly clone themselves, like generate into plasma cells. So plasma cells are here the guys that produce specific antibodies, yeah? Only one species of antibody that is specific for a particular antigen. And memory B cells, that is your the result of the vaccination. That those are derived again from the plasma cells, and they are always on the first line to attack specifically for, let's say, if you had vaccination for hepatitis B, and because hepatitis B part was introduced into your body to train your immune system, and by that time your plasma cells were able to produce B cells to have these antibodies, yeah, and these memory B cells will be specifically producing the antibodies that is particularly attacking the hepatitis B, okay? This is the reason why we need to vaccinate kids in order to be ready so that they are not getting the disease. So here is interesting point. in 1960, there was a study when measles vaccination was linked to autism in kids. So what happened is that in the UK, parents stopped vaccinating their children with this measles vaccine, okay, because they were afraid regarding the study's results. And there was outbreak of the measles disease because have you heard about this herd immunity, community immunity? So like we have this community immunity developed when people get vaccinated and there is no outbreak of the disease, yeah, because everyone is kind of protected against that disease and the society doesn't have this disease. And that's why we forget about this disease, because there is no any symptoms that people develop because they are already vaccinated. But what happened as a result of this study is that in the UK, parents stopped vaccinating their kids because they didn't want for them to get this autism. And there was outbreak of that disease because other kids, they were not protected enough as a result of non-vaccination. Whereas in previous years, there was no any outbreak of measles because there was collective immunity. And that's why when the child goes to the kindergarten, it's always mandatory to have the list of the vaccination because we need to have this herd immunity, even if some immunosuppressed people, yeah, like HIV people, HIV positive people, or pregnant women, or some other layers of the society who didn't have that vaccination against that disease. But if 80% of the people who reside in that area had that vaccination against that disease, those 20% of people will never suffer from that disease. Okay, I hope that that's clear because it's this is how actually it works. So even now with this COVID-19, it's a big debate going on that some people will want to be vaccinated, some others do not. And if we develop this herd immunity, like crowd immunity, then there is a very big probability that after 5 years, we will just forget that we had this pandemic situation because there won't be any sign of COVID outbreak. Okay, so plasmablasts, it's about the immature plasma cells, and plasma cells are those cells that secrete, yeah, the antibodies. And these antibodies, as you can see, they are Y-shaped and they are immunoglobulin. So if you had your blood test and you have immunoglobulin A, immunoglobulin M, immunoglobulin E, yeah, especially in allergic people, they always look at immunoglobulin E. So that is actually your antibody. So these antibody are specific in a way that they can recognize epitopes. Epitopes are proteins on the antigen. So depending on the epitope, we have different antibodies or immunoglobulins. So if it's like triangle shaped, we can have other antibodies which will be specific for these round shaped antigen. Okay, so antigen and antibody, once they come together, they trigger immune response for the destruction of the pathogen or infected cells with that specific pathogen. Okay, so here is a quick table for you not to be lost. So innate immunity, we have it since birth. We also have passive immunity that is transferred by our moms, right? Once we get the breastfeeding, we have the immunoglobulin A coming to us with milk to withstand any acute pathogens. And we also have innate immunity that is present since the very first days, and adaptive immunity is followed by the innate immunity, and it's throughout our lifetime. Okay, so response time with adaptive immunity is slow, whereas with innate immunity is very rapid. So here is just a quick overview. And what happens?
What do you mean by potency?
Potency, it means efficient.
Yes.
Because
Efficiency.
because this innate immunity is like for everyone, yeah, like no matter what kind of pathogen. So it just triggers like local inflammation or general inflammation, or so it's less potent in the meaning that it has less efficacy in terms of, because it's non-specific. Whereas here in adaptive immunity we have antibodies which are particularly specific to that part of antigen. Yeah, we have already knowing these antigens which we have developed memory cells, so that's why it's more potent, like efficient. So what happens if there is some patient who cannot actually develop this antibody production? Yeah, so there are different patients who are immunosuppressed, who take some immunosuppressed drugs due to the transplantation, but they need to be kind of prepared once they go outside to protect themselves. In that case, antibodies can be externally introduced in a way that first we collect the blood of that patient, of that specific patient. We collect the blood and we learn that antibodies are present in what part of the blood. We have plasma, we have serum, we have the sediment. Yeah, so in which part of we can find antibody? In plasma. Yeah, in the top part. Once you centrifuge all the blood, we have this plasma, and inside the plasma we can take the antibodies, and we can kind of trigger these antibodies to be specific to the antigen by introducing some antigens in the lab, in vitro. Okay, so we just externally we inject that with some antigens, so that these antibodies will be trained, yeah, to recognize them, and then after that we administer them to the same patient. Okay, so all the mammals, they have the specific function. Once they give birth to offspring, there is a hormone release of prolactin, and that results in the production of milk, secretion of milk in the mammary glands. Yeah, and evolutionarily it was made to allow the passive immunity, specifically bypassing the immunoglobulin A that is secreted by mother's B cells, and it's passed to child directly, so that the child is also prepared to any attack by the pathogens. So how it's all regulated? The role of vitamin D is emphasized here, as well as hormones. So T cells really need this vitamin D. So on a daily basis, you need to go for a walk or take these vitamin D supplements, yeah, because it stimulates the T cells to perform their actions. And regarding the hormones, specifically the estrogen, which is female hormones, it affects to have very good immunity, whereas interesting testosterone is kind of suppressive action. Also, the diet, which is really good with vitamins and some microelements for your body intake, are also good to have a good immune system. And sleep is also not to be ignored. Yeah, so during that sleep, once you have this day and night, you sleep at night and stay awake during the day is very important, not the vice versa, because your brain controls it. And you saw that we have this pineal gland that releases the melatonin. And once the person have this chronic insomnia or some disorders with sleep, that also affect the immune systems. And also the immunosuppression, we have also just discussed, yeah, people who go through the transplantation, or they're all giving these immunosuppressive drugs, and in order not to allow the rejection of the organ that is being translated. So in that case, those people are kept in sterile rooms and without any contact with relatives or people until the process of transplantation is not any longer under threat of being immune rejected. And up to that, the person will start to have his own immune system going back to normal. So how we can stimulate our immune system, that we can train actually it. So we can train it in a way that first, it's a nice example, it's a vaccination, yeah, so that we have special antibodies already alert, already ready to attack in case something occurs. So now let's talk about some diseases. So one of the autoimmune diseases that was um, uh, the type 1, yeah, the type 1 diabetes mellitus, and second now it's SLE, that is systemic lupus erythematosus. And this SLE is very dramatic in a way that it affects all organs, all tissues, so that the person who has this disease has inflammation going on everywhere. And here is just the first skin inflammation, especially in the facial area. And these people are always depressed, fatigued, they have this joint swelling, and it's very dramatic. And unfortunately, no cure is available for these patients. And still the cause, there is no any scientifically explained cause of it. However, scientists tell that there is a correlation, not direct relation, but correlation, yeah, that the estrogen or the female sex hormones, they kind of increase the appearance of these systemic lupus erythematosus. So women are more prone to develop it rather than men. And also acquired immune deficiency syndrome, that is due to the human HIV, yeah? So that is transmitted either by the breast milk or sexually or through the blood, that that actually leads to the T cell depletion. Okay, so HIV people, human immunodeficiency virus, targets this T cell for destruction. So these people are immune, they have no immunity at all because they don't have these T cells. Can you imagine? And these people should also have a diet, specific diet that is low in iron and zinc. So in case if there is bacterial infection or viral infection, and these virus and bacteria do not consume this vitamin E or zinc to prosper, to proliferate. And this is one of the opportunities for the HIV people to control their diet in order not to allow the proliferation of pathogens that cannot be stopped by the T cells, because there is no any T cells, right? Another form of immune disease, it's a lymphoma. As you can see, there is this bump, yeah, and we have lymphs there, yeah. And circuit. So what we have here, it's type of the cancer that is derived from the lymphocytes. And lymphocytes, as you learned, that is B lymphocyte, B cells and T cells, right? So once there is some irregulation and abnormal proliferation is going on, there is a visible effect on the skin that needs to be carefully looked by the doctors. Actually, they can be actually cured, or normally they are not that much life-threatening. The patient can either go chemotherapy or even surgical intervention, depending on the stage of the lymphoma. Okay, so hopefully it was not that much overwhelming, and it was hopefully kind of gave you some thought about your immune system. If any questions, you are welcome. I'll just quickly look at my chat. That there are lots of T helpers. Where do they get these T cells? Oh, interesting idea regarding these T helpers in their products. Is it like Food and Drug Administered regulated products? Because you always need to have a look whether if they are American products, there is an organization like FDA which strictly uh, control the manufacture of the health products, yeah. And you need to we really need to be sure whether they have clear scientific background when they tell that these T helpers can produce, like, because actually it's the cells, because once the cells is in your product, it's uh, maybe this is something that induces T helper cells, yes, some like stimulants in the form of like vitamin D or something like that. But you need to be really careful by taking some food that contains cells. So, and you know, there's all these I herb stuff. They are not FDA granted. Yeah, so FDA doesn't have any kind of close monitoring to the I herb products because they are all like food supplements, and that's why it's always put a question regarding their efficiency and potency in helping our health. Regarding, yeah, I think that is some kind of stimulant. And again, with this yogurt, guys, believe me, it's all about marketing. I'm telling it for sure because I teach my students food microbiology, and I have learned many study cases when these giant companies were filing, how to say, were filing a judge, yeah, in the court, and they were really losing many money, big amount of money, of false claiming that the yogurt will boost your immune system and so on and so on. Yeah, filing lawsuits. Thank you so much. Because it's all about marketing. Okay. So if the child was, if the child was going through the cesarean section, yeah. If it was going through the C-section, or if it was not taking the breast milk, of course it's recommended, but nevertheless it's not that much a problem, because the IgA, which is in the breast milk, cannot go through the baby's body, although the rest of the essential nutrients can go, yeah, in the powder form. Now we have very nice milk formulation for babies, which is not a problem at all. But for the immunoglobulin A that is not passed, it cannot be passed through this milk formulation. But just the parents need to be sure to go outside to take the vitamin D, yeah, so that it can stimulate the immune cells like T cells, and also give good, because after 6 months they just take the normal food where they can have their own. After 6 months they will start to develop their own immunoglobulin, actually. Interesting. Is it possible for a pregnant woman's immune system to recognize the baby? Interesting. Actually, no. You know why? Because the baby's blood system and women's blood system are completely different. So they never cross-react, okay? And naturally, it's a very nice question, Bathan, because naturally the women body is already designed in a way not to reject the baby once it gets implanted into the uterus. How?
May I ask?
Yeah.
So if women's body is more prepared for being ready to accept that baby when it's developing, does it mean that it's easier for women to recover after transplantation, organs transplantation?
Your question is like if the pregnant woman, or it's just any woman?
No, just any woman. So any woman, how to say, as our immune system is prepared for like another body developing in us, does it mean that after transplantation, it's easier for women to recover as their body is designed in this way?
Mhm.
Transplantation of
Okay, so
other
your
person's
question is like
organs.
difference between the baby and difference between the organ transplantation, yeah? How the women's body will react, yeah? Is it like that? I don't know.
Yeah. So
Okay,
you said that our body is more prepared for another uh, body in us. I don't know how to say it.
yeah, I think I got your question. So in the case for pregnancy, yeah, we know that the
Mm,
baby is developed through the formation of gamete, that is the mother's egg cells and the father's sperm cells, right? So this
mhm,
is something already intrinsic, yeah? The egg cell
mhm,
gives the rise with the sperm cell to a gamete that gets implanted on the uterus. So it's already not something foreign, yeah? Like it's already something self. Whereas
mhm,
in your question with the organ transplantation, uh, here the question is that the organ is already linked to the blood supply, right? Like kidney, they're already touching the
mhm,
blood where we have lots of immune cells circulating. Like for instance, neutrophils, they are traveling all the way throughout our body for some to monitor what's going on. So in that case, as you can see, the organ is already in a open contact with the blood. Whereas when the baby is implanted, yeah, the let's say embryo is implanted into the uterus, um, you have this placenta formation, yeah, that's kind of protects from the blood, from the woman's blood, from so it has its own inner world to develop. You see what I mean? Whereas in the organ transplantation, there is no such a thing as a protective layer. You just put that into the already working environment, yeah, where the recipient's uh, immune system can cause the attack. Yeah,
Okay, I see.
and that's also the donor and the recipient. That's why like donors are looked for many years because doctors we need to see the compatibility. Like they also look at the human leukocyte antigens, like all this compatibility uh, to be like implanted. And even in that case, they are given this immunosuppressants.
Mhm. Oh, I got a story about that immune suppressors.
Oh,
So
really? Just
once, yeah,
yeah, can you share with
we
us?
know that these people after transplantation, their immune system is very weak,
Yes.
so they're kept in sterile rooms, so to say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And once, like two people were kept in one room after transplantation, and both of them got sick anyway, though
Oh,
their beds, everything was clean. And after investigation, it was found out that they got sick because of the air conditioner
ah.
or like вытяжка
Mm-hmm.
that
Ventilation.
was ventilation, yeah, that was brought into their room, and on the walls of this ventilation there was moldy, like mildew, how to say it,
Yeah, like
plesень,
molds.
so to
Yeah,
say.
molds. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so just simply breathing in this thing got them
I
sick
see.
very
That's true.
hard.
That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah, it's in which country that does that occur? Did it occur?
I don't really remember. It was a long time ago. I just read it somewhere in some article.
Okay, because like in Nazarbayev University, we have sterile rooms, yeah, to work with some bacteria, very pathogenic bacteria, and we need to make sure that we have very sterile environment, not to contaminate them, yeah, with some. So what we have is that we have only air that goes in one flow, in one direction, and all the air that goes in one direction, it's completely clean air because they go from the HEPA filter whether you have heard about it, HEPA filters, they have very tiny pores that is like 200 times less than your single hair. Can you imagine? So that any particulate any particulate that is larger than this 200 times tinier than your hair diameter will be like stuck in that filter and will never go back to the air circulation in that particular area. So now I'm like very, very surprised that those people put the patients into the air conditions or ventilation room where the microorganism particulate entered their blood system. So there is something wrong with the actual designing of the sterile room because either the filters were not correct so that the microorganism escaped through these filters, or there was no one circulation of air. So maybe there was like cross contamination from other ventilation because it's really risky, right, for those people who underwent through such a very big medical procedure and just to be left sick with this neglection of the architecture or design of that building. But it's a really
Maybe that
interesting story.
filters got
Yeah,
damaged
yeah, because
or
it's
something like this.
that's yeah, interesting story. Thank you for sharing with us. It's really, really interesting. Thank you so much, guys. I think we are a bit running out.
Professor.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, are we? I mean, if we are, so that's okay.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I just wanted to like ask this question about kind of elaborate on what other people were saying about the reaction of body to of a woman to baby, and I wanted to ask about the effect of like rhesus factor because I was just talking about this with my mother the other day, and it's
Okay.
now in this chat, and so I was so. My
Okay.
mother
Yeah.
has a negative rhesus
Oh,
factor,
really?
and
Okay. And you?
I was born. I am I'm the first child, and I have a little sister who is yeah, she's 10 years younger. And so in her second pregnancy, my mother had to because her antibodies went
Yeah.
up, and like she could have potentially lost the sister if
Oh,
like
really?
the birth wouldn't have been given earlier. So I
Mhm.
wanted to ask whether how does I don't know if it affects if it relates to immune system, but I'm not just was curious
Sure,
about
I
that.
can explain it. It's a very good question. But so when the woman is Rh positive and she gets pregnant with the baby who is Rh negative, no problem at all. Okay, so this is
Uh-huh.
if there is a problem if the woman is Rh negative and she gets pregnant with Rh positive baby, then there is a problem. There is a problem during the
Yeah,
second.
that's what the system.
During there's a problem that occurs during the second pregnancy, not during the first. And why? Yeah, and here comes the immune system response. So having said that, mother's blood supply and the baby's blood supply do not get mixed until the delivery, yeah, through the birth canal, the blood can be mixed, and this is the point where the Rh negative the cells, yeah, can can attack the Rh positive red blood cells, because we know this rhesus factor on the surface of the red blood cells, right? And they will start to these antibodies will start to attack the red blood cells of the baby. But during the first pregnancy, it's not a problem at all, because it's like the body is just seeing it for the first time, right? It's like first time they encountered it, and then they will have a memory of it. The woman's body will be sensitized to it and will remember it forever. So for the second pregnancy, if the woman again becomes pregnant with the Rh positive baby, yeah, she is Rh negative, she became positive with the Rh positive, then the doctor needs to administer specific antibodies so that these antibodies will block these like they're called ROGAM. It's like worldwide administered intramuscularly, either at the beginning or in the later stages of the pregnancy of the baby, so that this administers into the mother, so that the mother's immune cells will not attack the baby's red blood cells. Because what happens if they will start to attack red blood cells? We know that these are blood cells, they carry oxygen, yeah, to the brain, throughout the tissue. And if the mother's immune cells start to attack these foreign Rh negative, Rh positive blood cells, all the red blood cells of the baby will be lysed, yeah, and no oxygen will be transported to maintain the growth of the baby to be developed. So now what is now it can, for those mommies, yeah, who have Rh negative, they can still have the babies, like even if she's positive, Rh positive, and but if the father is if she's Rh negative, yeah, because this rhesus factor is inherited, then still the baby can be born absolutely fine. But in your case, what happens? Your sister was born, yeah, absolutely fine.
Yeah, but she was like a month or two. Like I was just talking about this yesterday, and my mother told me that she was to give birth like 2 weeks later, but they had to kind of start stimulate the birth. So before, like 10 or 2 weeks, 10 days or 2 weeks earlier. That's why, because the antibodies started to go up, and that's why. And yeah, my mother, she's HI negative. With my sister, we are positive.
Oh,
so
interesting.
yeah, it's
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm really
So she's the only member.
Went well.
Yeah, sure. It's just interesting to, I don't know, I think it's coincidence that today's immune system topic and talking about this, and I decided to brought it up. So yeah, thank you.
Of course, it's an excellent point that is also comes with our topic for today. Yeah, so like during the first, it's like innate immunity. Yeah, it didn't have a chance to kind of reject the baby. Yeah, or not to reject, but to attack their red blood cells. But in the second time, they're kind of ready. Yeah, it's adaptive immunity. They already sense, haha, there is Rh positive baby. I can attack their red blood cells. In case if it's mixed again, okay? In case if their blood gets mixed, mommy's and baby's blood, if they are mixed, only in that case it starts to attack, like during some cesarean section or like some taking the liquid from the amniotic liquid. Yeah, if some intervention is occurring, in that case there is a big chance that the baby's and mom's blood will be mixed, and that in that case the immune cells that is traveling in the blood will go into the babies to attack. But if there is if the pregnancy is going well, fine, under the supervision, and only that the doctors will give the ROGAM, yeah, these antibodies to block, just to be sure that when the baby will be delivered that there is no attack to it, because they will be mixed with the blood.
And also, is there potential differences? For example, if my mother were to have her second pregnancy right after like mine, so is it, or I mean, the age difference, does it matter if she were to have my sister just like after me? So would this case also occur with antibodies, or because, I mean, she told me that.
So she told you like she was fortunate to have your sister 10 years later, right?
No. I mean, she when this occurred, when the doctors notified my father and my mother that she had this problem with antibodies, that if she had sister earlier, this problem wouldn't have occurred. So I was just wondering if there's age difference also matters. For example,
no, age wouldn't
I
have
was born, and then my sister were to be no.
No.
Because some people, like some doctors, told me that they recommended them to have the second child after me. So, yeah.
Maybe because they just want to be on the safe side, so that your mom's body developed these adaptive like just to be sure that that those memory, to be sure that she would have developed these memory B cells, right? That recognize, so that they, during the pregnancy they would really identify that they are there. Because it just, but I think like even it, because adaptive immunity will start to be sensitized, yeah, like straight after the innate immunity. But it takes some years, yeah, for the adaptive. They are kind of sitting there waiting, and maybe just to be on the safe side, they advise. But from my own opinion, I think like even if she gave birth after 2 years, 3 years, it would be the same. She would definitely have those antibodies.
Okay.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for your discussions. I always enjoy it. I think we are running out of time. Yes, so we'll see you on Tuesday with reproductive system. So that will be the last lecture. So I wish you all have a good weekend and stay safe. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Nikita.